Helldivers 2 has now been out for a few days, and I've spent almost every waking hour leveling up and studying every detail to bring you the top things that you may have been doing wrong and stopping you from getting ahead of the game and being the envy of everyone you play with. Just one thing I wanted to share with you though before we get into the tips. I must say I'm having way more fun with this game than I thought I would. For some reason, I thought it was more of a PvEvP type game like Hunt Showdown or the new Warzone, so I wasn't sure how much I was looking forward to it. But I loved the Starship Troopers aesthetic, so I took the dive anyway. Get it? Dive? Helldivers? Anyway, it turns out that it is completely co-op with an option to play solo too, which is perfect for me. And I am really enjoying this game, so hopefully these tips will help you enjoy it even more as well. Tip number 1 is to not try and play this game like a normal FPS, where you rely primarily on your audio to locate your enemies. As a Helldiver, you have a plethora of tools at your disposal, and one fantastic tool is your minimap. When you open your minimap, it will periodically ping so that you can keep track of any enemies nearby. And certain armor sets and skills will even enhance this function so that it pings more frequently and further away. This is the method you want to primarily rely on to keep track of your enemies. You die very quickly, so positioning is absolutely key. Knowing where the next wave is coming from is absolutely vital, so always periodically open your map and just keep it open for 2 seconds to check if there's a wave of enemies incoming. This way, especially if you're defending an objective, you know exactly where to look and where to bunker down. Tip number 2 is to not spend your money until you hit level 5. The primary currency you earn is spent on stratagems, and this is the various equipment and support that you can cool down and bring into the battlefield with you. It takes a while to rack up any decent amount of money, and it isn't long before stratagems start costing 5,000 to 10,000 credits. Therefore, as I'm looking through this list, you will see that apart from the machine gun and the orbital precision strike, which you start with unlocked, I haven't purchased anything near the start of each category, because before long you will just unlock a straight up better version as soon as you hit level 5. Now, I should say, sometimes there is an argument to use these smaller ones. For instance, if we go back and take another look at the orbital cannons, the orbital 380mm HE barrage that I've got unlocked is absolutely huge, and this definitely makes it very situational. So the 120mm and even the basic Gatling barrage do have their uses in certain missions. However, for the most part, trust me, save your money until you get to level 5, and then once again for when you get to level 10, because most of the time you just unlock a straight up improvement and upgrade to the stratagems that you would have purchased previously. For instance, one fantastic example is the sentry gun. You can purchase the machine gun sentry pretty much straight off the bat, but you can't get the Gatling sentry until level 5. And the Gatling sentry makes the machine gun look so pathetically weak in comparison. So do not waste your money on stratagems such as this. And as we're looking through this list, I will say the only stratagem that I absolutely cannot live without, especially in solo play, is the grenade launcher. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll talk about why that is in a later tip. But just keep in mind, the grenade launcher is definitely one you want to grab as early as possible. Tip number 3 is to try not to rush around too quickly immediately after completing an objective. Once the area has been cleared and the enemies have been defeated, you should take some time to check around for samples, money, rare weapons, etc. Especially after clearing a nest, because as far as I'm aware, every single nest there will always be at least one sample, and you are going to need these to unlock some really juicy upgrades for your spaceship. That being said, don't spend too long dawdling. The UI is very good at highlighting for you if there is something nearby that's lootable, so just do a quick scan before you move on, because the longer you take, the worse things can get for you, and I will elaborate on that in a tip later on in the video. And this is primarily for 2 reasons. Firstly, enemies get stronger the longer you stay in a mission, and secondly, you're going to lose experience points. I'll elaborate on both of these points later on though, they have their own tips, so hold your horses and I'll cover them in detail shortly. Tip number 4 is to never stand in front of your turrets. I spoke about the machine gun sentry and the Gatling sentry earlier. There are many other sentries as well, all incredibly powerful, and I strongly recommend investing into them, but they do not care if a friendly is stood in front of their target. They can and will kill you almost immediately. So when you have a turret out, if you can, just get away from it or stand on top of it. Turrets do not have a timed life. They will last infinitely until they run out of ammo. So a fantastic way to support your turret is stand on top of it and shoot at the same things your turret is shooting at. This way it lasts a lot longer and it can cover you while you're doing things like resupplying and reloading. Tip number 5 is don't sit on your stratagems waiting for the ideal time to use them. This tip is specifically aimed at hoarders. I know your hoarder mentality will kick in, the same with stratagems that it does with items in RPGs. You won't ever use them just in case there's a more opportune time to use them later on. Almost all of them have a really quick cooldown. So feel free to use that orbital bombardment on every single bug nest you come across. Drop your resupply whenever it's available. Almost all of your stratagems do not have a timed life, and any kind of resupply or weapon that you drop down, it will always be there to grab. So every time your resupply is ready, call it straight away, because you will give yourself and your teammates the maximum amount of ammo and supplies for the mission. If you sit on it until you absolutely need it, you could have potentially wasted 2 whole drop downs. That may not be for 5 to 10 minutes, so you could potentially have wasted 2 whole cooldowns. So use your stratagems frequently and frivolously. There is honestly very little downside to it. My only advice would be always save at least one of your powerful ones. For instance, if you have an airstrike, a bombardment, and a Gatling gun, pick one of the 3 to save just in case something gets pretty dicey. And don't forget that your resupplies and anything else that calls in physical equipment can be dropped on top of your enemies and will kill most of them in one hit. Though the same goes for your teammates, so be careful where you're calling stuff in. And as we were just talking about how frequent and plentiful stratagems are, tip number 6 is don't be afraid to burst through your ammo and the rest of your equipment for that matter as well. Especially if you're playing with only 1 or 2 people, one single resupply cooldown can fully replenish you twice over. So don't worry about being conservative with your ammo. I go absolutely ballistic with my grenade launcher every time there are more than 3 enemies involved. And not once have I ever found myself starved for ammo. Helldivers is meant to be an explosion-heavy, over-the-top spectacle of a game, so treat it as such and go crazy with your ammo supplies. The only thing I would add to this tip is always save at least a couple of grenades or grenade launcher shots so that you can take out nests ASAP and you're not needing to wait for the next resupply or orbital bombardment. Tip number 7 may sound counterintuitive at first, but let me explain. Tip number 7 is do not take your time if you are struggling. Now, I know this sounds really silly. Surely you want to take your time to make sure you don't get ganked, to give yourself a chance to heal up and resupply. And to an extent, that is kind of true. However, please be aware that the longer a mission takes, the heavier the enemy presence becomes. And this increase is significant and dramatic, especially as you get onto harder and harder difficulty levels. You can do things like taking out robo factories and taking out bug nests to try and quell the population a bit. However, there was a few missions when I was playing with members of the community where later on in a mission, the bug population was getting that big and that out of hand, they were literally spawning on top of us. There was no nests around, and no less than 15 bugs literally just appeared around me out of thin air. Missions can get pretty chaotic towards the end, so if you're struggling, rush to that final objective. Don't worry about anything else. And also, you didn't mishear me, I love to play games like this with my community. So if you are interested in playing and you don't have a team that you currently play with, that's the situation I found myself in. Jump in our Discord server and we can all play together sometime. Even if I'm not around, there's a bunch of people that really love this game, and it would be great to be able to all play together. This next tip is primarily aimed at solo players. This is something I found out because I didn't want to fall behind all of the teams that were playing. So for tip number 8, if you want loads of experience, especially if you're playing solo, do not take forever trying to mop up every single side thing in a mission. And to add to this, don't worry about trying to do missions on challenging or hard difficulty, etc. Just stick to easy and go for a quick completion. Now, let me explain the maths behind this. For completing a mission, you are guaranteed 100 XP. Tier 1 nests give you 5 XP. Tier 2 nests give you 10. For extracting with one person, you get 20 XP. And completing side objectives gives you 50 XP. On top of this, you can then also get up to 100 bonus XP based on how quickly you have completed the mission. Especially solo, it will take you at least a couple of minutes to clear out even a tier 1 bug nest. That is going to net you literally 5 experience points, which you are going to have lost from your quick completion bonus. Side objectives are a bit more worthwhile if they are on the critical path. Don't worry about trying to deviate and go and do them, because again, it will take too long and it won't be experience efficient. So stick to easy missions, just beeline for that quick completion bonus, and you can easily net yourself 200 plus experience in 7 minutes or less. Now, realistically, you've also got the loading time of the mission and the score screen at the end. So let's round that up to 10 minutes. That means you can still get in 6 missions per hour at 200 experience each. That's 1200 experience per hour. Now, if you were to comb the entire map with a group of 4 people and do all side objectives, because you're not getting that completion bonus, you will likely be netting yourself around 350 experience, but it's almost guaranteed to take you the full 40 minutes. So you can get either 200 experience in less than 10 minutes, or not even double that for around 40 to 45 minutes of playtime. So I'll reiterate again because this tip is so important. If you want loads of experience, do not take forever trying to mop up all of the side missions and bug nests and factories, etc. Get the main mission done, get out as quick as possible, and reap that quick completion bonus. I also have what I believe to be the perfect build and the perfect method to do this as quickly as possible. So if you are interested in learning more, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to do a full breakdown and a full video of the most efficient way to smash through missions in 7 minutes or less. I just didn't want to do that in this video because it would become so long, and I'm not sure at this stage how many people care about it. So if you let me know, I can then gauge the interest and I'll make that a separate video if you want me to. Now, tip 9 is quite the opposite to tip 8, and this is the one reason in which you would want to complete all objectives in every mission and be really slow and methodical. As I say, experience-wise, this is very, very inefficient. However, if you're trying to focus on samples and at higher difficulties, rare samples, then tip number 9 is not to rush through missions and actually complete every objective and comb every area. Every time you see a yellow beacon flashing in the distance, that could be some credits, that could be some war bonds. That's a long-term resource that you want to start stockpiling. And in the same vein, samples are scattered all over the place in minor hidden locations, in bug nests, in camps, you name it. They could be anywhere and everywhere. So if you've got to the point where you don't care about experience points and you just want to farm money and samples, then combing everything and taking your time could be the way to go. Obviously, if you have a well-oiled team and you're all really good at the game and really kitted out, ideally you can combine both of these tips. You can go for that quick completion bonus whilst combing every single area in the mission. Because don't forget that if one of you grabs some money or a sample, that is shared throughout your entire team. So it may be well worth splitting up into 2 teams of 2 or even 4 teams of 1 and covering as much of the map as possible. That is the ideal, that is the dream. And hopefully those of us that play in the Doms Roundtable Discord will get to that point soon, and it will be incredible to witness. But until then, focus on one or the other. Don't try and stretch yourself too thin. Tip number 10 is more of an FYI rather than something you may be doing wrong. As you now already know, when you have the map open, a radar will ping and tell you if enemies are nearby. However, did you also know at the bottom left of your screen, it will also show you if your allies' stratagems are on cooldown. So if you're screaming out for your friend to bombard that charger and they keep telling you that their ability's on cooldown, well, now you can check for yourself and see if they're just being lazy. Obviously, another great use for this function, other than just pointing fingers and breaking friendships, is the fact that you can coordinate your stratagems, and without having to ask all members of your party constantly, is this on cooldown, is this on cooldown, you can just check yourself, and you can use this to coordinate your next big strike. Tip number 11 is to stop using all weapons in their default setting. You may wonder what I even mean by this, but yes, in fact, most weapons are very customizable. As you can see here, if I hold down the reload button, this menu will pop up, which will not only show me how many bullets I have left in my magazine, it will allow me to change the distance at which the scope is set to, whether or not I want my flashlight toggled on, off, or on automatic, and perhaps most importantly, the fire setting I want on my currently equipped weapon. And please note that lots of different weapon categories have different options here, so make sure every time you use a new weapon, you come in here and check it out. And get familiar and comfortable with scrolling through this menu, because especially changing the distance of the scope can be really invaluable in certain situations. For example, on the PC, when you're holding down R for reload, you can scroll up on the mouse wheel to change the scope, you can scroll down to change the flashlight, or you can press right mouse button to cycle through the different fire types. Get comfortable with this menu with all weapons, because it will make you effective at all ranges, and perhaps most importantly, will keep you out of danger more often. And the final tip is don't forget to create massive explosions, have fun, and blow up your friends. There is so many ways to have ridiculous amounts of fun in this game. As I said right at the start, I could not believe I was enjoying a shooter. I am not a shooting game kind of gamer. I do not really enjoy them, but I'm having so much fun both in solo play and with teammates. Your enemies, your friends, and even yourself can be ragdolled in so many more ways than I could describe in this video. You can dolphin dive off a ledge and watch your character flailing towards the earth as they're screaming, or you could even get all four of you to do it at the same time. There are also many plants scattered around that when you shoot them will cause a big old explosion, and friends and enemies alike will go flying. There is ridiculous amounts of fun and silliness to be had in this game, so don't try and just min-max all the time and burn yourself out. Allow yourself a few missions to just have some fun and some silliness. And on that note, another cheeky little tip for you is you will still get all your experience even if you don't exfil from a mission, even if you do die. You won't obviously be able to retrieve your samples, but you're still going to level up and you're still going to have a lot of fun. So some missions you just need to go in not really caring about what happens and just learn to appreciate the chaos and the fun that is Helldivers 2. And with that, my friends, that's the top things in Helldivers 2 that you need to stop doing to become better at the video game. Please let me know in the comments if you have any other tips you'd like to share with people. Anything I missed, I would love to hear it. And with that, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.